Hey guys, this week I'm back with another pantry challenge video. Today is Sunday and I'm starting us off with some sausage biscuits and gravy from scratch. I made the sausage and biscuits last night before bed since I'm not really a morning person. And yesterday there's not much to speak of as far as what we ate. My husband fixed us some eggs and bacon in the morning and then we just snacked the rest of the day. And today I have planned out a large chunk of time to cooking several meals to stick in the fridge so that way we can reheat it throughout the week so we're less tempted to go out, and also, I want to get rid of some of the overflow from the fridge and pantry because it is jam packed. The first thing that was on my list to get rid of was this out of date cinnamon flavored eggnog that my husband brought home during the holidays. It smelled okay, even though it was out of date, so I still used it. We didn't end up drinking this stuff because it didn't taste very good. I prefer regular old eggnog, and usually Dawson will make it from scratch. But he didn't get any time to really do that this year. However, it'll make some delicious French toast, especially using the cinnamon streusel bread that I got from Costco that's been chilling in our freezer. This recipe did call for rum, which I just had laying around. It was supposed to be for vanilla bean extract, but I never got around to making it, so I've just been using it for baking. I got my little station set up here, and I let my bread thaw since it was from the freezer while I got started on making some eggnog cake. This was actually the second time I've ever gotten to use my new KitchenAid. I say new, but really it was my grandmother's that she gifted to me for Christmas this year since she's not really up to using it much anymore. And I can tell you this thing works amazing, and I know that I'm going to cherish it and think of her every time I use it. And it just makes me feel really good knowing that I have something of hers. I did double this recipe in order to use up more of the eggnog, but there's no way we're going to go through this much cake very fast. So I planned on pre-slicing it and vacuum sealing it, putting it in the freezer, so that way we have a small portion to pull out whenever we want a dessert. Also, this sifter attachment, by the way, is really awesome. Whenever I want to make a soft cake, but I want to include wheat flour, I use that and it gets out all the large grains of wheat. And also, I use a Redmond real salt and it's kind of chunkier and it takes out all the large chunks of salt. That way, when I'm eating my cake, I don't chomp down on a big piece of salt, which I have done before and it is unpleasant because I didn't realize it was the salt at first and I was wondering what the heck is happening. What is in my cake that is causing that awful crunch? So I racked my brain and Google for some more ideas of what I could do with the rest of this eggnog because I still had quite a bit left at this point. Nothing sounded really good. It was all like cake based or pancake or breakfast. And then my husband had the suggestion of making eggnog milkshakes, which we had everything for. So we enjoyed eggnog milkshakes this night and Monday night as well to get rid of the rest of that. I would love to hear any suggestions you might have on how to use up eggnog, but I'll definitely be sure not to drown myself in it next year. Now, moving on to this next baked good that I am starting on, I made some sourdough hamburger buns, which proofed overnight in the fridge, so I don't actually have any footage of these finished, but believe me, they were delicious and they went fast. This was my first time using sourdough as the leavening agent for buns, so I wasn't really expecting much. I wanted to use up the oranges that my mom puts in our stockings every year for Christmas, and I thought the best way to do that would be to make an orange chicken sauce from scratch, which I have never done before. I debated whether I wanted to pre-fry some chicken tonight and put it in the fridge to reheat, but ultimately decided against it because I already had a lot on my plate this day, and Dawson works from home. It's not that hard for him to just fry some chicken up fresh. Now, orange chicken sauce is something that I've been meaning to try to can from scratch just for convenience to be able to pull it down off my shelf whenever I want to. I think that's a really great idea, but I read somewhere that the only safe way to do it is to can it kind of soupy and then add your cornstarch and water mixture like I'm doing here right before you serve it, which is a sacrifice that I'm willing to make because you know what? It is a lot more simple to just add cornstarch and water to my mixture than it is to make the sauce completely from scratch on a weeknight. So that is a trade-off I am more than willing to make. I know some people, when they make shelf-stable, like canned meals, want it to be as simple as possible, but sometimes you just can't get around doing little stuff like that. And here I chopped up some potatoes and got them on the stove so that I can turn them into mashed potatoes for one of our side dishes. Then I got a pan hot with two different types of better than bouillon and also a pat of porcini mushroom butter. I added some chopped mushrooms to cook down. You'll see what we're doing with that here in a bit. Now I decided to make a meatloaf to go with the mashed potatoes But hear me out, it's a turkey meatloaf. So if you've watched my pantry challenge videos from last year, you might already know that I do not like ground beef. I don't like the flavor, I don't like the texture that much, and it sits heavy on my stomach. Well, this kind of limits a lot of the dinner recipes that I can make, or at least a lot of the like old quick recipes in the books that I have here at my house that I want to try because they require beef. And I feel like when you're cooking a quick recipe, that meat is what carries half of the whole portion of flavor. And a lot of the times it's a recipe that can't be simply switched out with like grilled chicken. And believe me, vegetarian recipes are not for the weak. Those require a lot of spices and forethought about different flavor profiles, I feel like, and they require a lot of time to make usually. Anyway, I decided not to let it stop me anymore because last year I figured out that I really like ground turkey. I know it's a little weird discovering that you like something as simple as turkey at 28, but I was a pretty picky kid, and it turns out I also like Thanksgiving turkey now if my Uncle Jim makes it, which requires a 24-hour brine and smoking it, but that's a story for another time. This meatloaf is delicious and doesn't give me indigestion, and there's really only one thing that I would change about it, which would be to layer it like a cake, which sounds gross, I know, and but I want to put the ketchup glaze in the middle as well as on the top. I love that ketchup glaze, and I bet that's something that I could can in 4-ounce jars as well to keep on hand. Now I'm moving on to making some ground turkey hamburgers for this week. I got my turkey ready and added quite a few spices. We've found that cumin makes the flavor in our burgers really good. My husband likes to experiment with hamburger spices, and that's the one that we have found that he cannot leave out, or else it doesn't taste right. So I added the mushrooms that I sauteed to this, and now this is my husband's favorite burger to have. And he's not even this chunk was frozen. I let it thaw out a little bit more, but he's not even a mushroom guy, and he loves these mushroom burgers and would like them from now on. So add mushrooms to your burger. It's really good. I got these beautiful purple cabbage heads. This is not purple cabbage. Cauliflower heads from Jungle Gyms. And if you've never been to Jungle Gyms, it's like a huge international market that we have here in Ohio. Look how pretty that is. And they were in the reduced section. I love perusing the reduced section whenever we go every year. I threw some pasta on too for some baked ziti that I decided to make. And I just chunked these cauliflower bits up and threw them in my wok because it was the biggest pan that I had for this. And I am making cauliflower masala. So I was trying to figure out what I could do with all this cabbage. I did it again. All this cauliflower that I bought, and I got cabbage on the brain, I guess. And I thought the best way to use it up in a way that we would eat it is to make it into a curry, a vegetarian curry, because curry already has a lot of spices and it kind of still holds up when you don't use any meat in it because of all the spices. It took quite a while to cook this down, actually. I ended up having to add some water and put a lid on it because it this isn't a fire stove, and I feel like that would have worked better for a wok. It didn't really heat very evenly, so I ended up just steaming it until it was fork tender, and that worked pretty well. The masala sauce came together pretty quickly, and I am proud to say that I did not measure any spices out for the sauce, which I was being bold doing because sometimes the last time I made an Indian dish and didn't measure out the spices, it was way too hot and spicy. But I'm kind of getting more comfortable with the Indian dishes that I'm cooking. So I just kind of eyeballed it and made sure that the spiciest spice that I was using was not the heaviest spice that I was using. And it turned out great. I actually cooked, it's been a week from now since I filmed this, and I've cooked another Indian dish since then that'll be in next week's video that turned out really well good too, and I didn't measure a darn thing. So for this baked ziti, this is my go-to quick meal when I just want something to slap together and I don't really want to have to think about it. It's technically not ziti. It is just penne pasta, some red sauce, and a crap load of cheese. I think actual ziti has like a bunch of other cheeses in it, and I think sausage too, which I would love to can a sausage sauce so that I can have that on hand as well. This looks gross. I'll admit, this looks really gross. And it had me thrown off. But once I mixed it in with the sauce, it was better and it tasted delicious, even though it looked a little funky. And it was the weirdest thing. When I bit into the cabbage, some of them were still purple on the inside. So they were green on the outside and purple on the inside, and it was pretty cool. I added some goat yogurt to this sauce to kind of make it a little bit more creamy. and that tasted really good. That goat yogurt was about to go bad, so I was glad to use some of it up. And I had planned to like make a goat cheese out of it too. I found a recipe online where you could take goat yogurt and like add, I think it's just salt to it, and maybe it's just salt. You add something to it, and it like curdles and becomes a nice goat cheese. But I didn't get around to that today, so maybe another day I'll try that. I went ahead and made a drizzle for this dish by mixing the goat yogurt, some sour cream, some lemon juice, some salt, and enough water so that it would drizzle really nicely over our meal. And I really think that this is what brought the meal together, the flavors right there. I don't think it would have tasted the same without the drizzle. Here's the ziti, very nice, very plain. And I guess I'm mixing up. Oh, yeah, these are our hamburgers. And my husband ended up finishing these off for me and cooking them. I didn't think they would hold up in the fridge, being shaped and then put in the fridge because they're kind of watery. But yeah, he kindly did that for me while I got started chopping some homegrown carrots. And this is the first success I've ever had. And look how beautiful that is. Isn't that so pretty? I almost didn't want to eat it because of how pretty it was. And it brought me so much joy when we were eating these. We made honey glazed carrots out of them to know that I was eating something that came from my garden. Well, that is it for this week. I will see you again next week. Thank you for watching. Bye.